And my first love that I started was with sheep's milk, because when I lived in Spain, Manchego was my favorite. And then when I went to Italy and I lived there, I found this cheese, Cacio de Roma, because when I met my ex, um, I used to go to their restaurant all the time. And when I would eat the cheeses, I always would pick the one with the black label. And that was this cheese here. It was Cacio de Roma, a semi-soft sheep's milk cheese from Rome. This was the second cheese that Forever Cheese, or as Simi Fulvi, ever sold in the US. And it was a really hard thing to sell because it didn't have a category. It wasn't Manchego. It wasn't Romano. It wasn't cheddar. It wasn't Jack. It was a semi-soft sheep's milk cheese. So who the heck goes to a store and asks for semi-soft sheep's milk cheese? It was tough, man. I'd do demos and demos. And I'd say, what kind of cheese? It's a semi-soft sheep's milk cheese. No, no, no. But what kind of cheese? It's like, I'm telling you, I thought I was like one of the Three Stooges, or just kept going back and forth. But this cheese is very, very, very close to my heart. This is a typical caciotta, or little wheel of cheese, that you find in Italy. And as you go from Italy, from north to south, you find more sheep cheeses in the center and the south of Italy, and more cow's milk cheeses in the north. When you have a little wheel, they would call it caciotta, which cacio is a slang word for cheese, and caciotta is like little wheel. And we used to have all these people like going to stores asking for caciotta, and that's just like a generic term. So that could have been anything. It could have been all sheep, it could have been mixed, it could have been cow and goat, it could have been from anywhere. So to try and figure out what people wanted. So we knew that this style of cheese could do well, but we had to try and find a way that it equated with what people would want when they came back from Italy and then could get in a store. This is a mean quesadilla. I love it on pizzas because it's so melty. And I always tried, my thoughts of it were, I couldn't eat much cheese when I was a kid. Since I was 15, I knew I had a cholesterol issue. I did learn that eventually, of course, growing up, it was cow's milk, and then it was skimmed cow's milk cheese, and then it was low salt cow cheese. And finally I said, I'm not eating cheese anymore. And I stopped eating cheese. And then I went to live in Europe. And it was like eating Technicolor. I was like, oh my God, this has flavor. This is worth eating. And it was like, this is kind of what I grew up with, but this had more flavor. So all I needed was a little bit of cheese. And that's what I just tried to convey to people. And that's why I understood why sheep's milk was such a popular item in Italy and in Spain. You just need a little bit and it goes a long way. But this is really steeped in tradition, not just of the countryside of Rome, but in Tuscany. They might call it Pecorino Toscano there, or Pecorino Senese. In Abruzzo, they do sheep cheese. There's Pecorino Abruzzese. The word pecorino means sheep in Italian. So this is a pecorino. It's a younger pecorino. This is Pecorino Romano. The DOP cheese is Pecorino Romano. So I can't call this Pecorino Romano. I can call it a pecorino, but it's not Pecorino Romano. There's only one Pecorino Romano, and that's this cheese. So this is a caciotta. We call it Cacio de Roma, which is Roman slang. Proper Italian would be Cacio di Roma, and people correct us all the time. But this is something from my, for a long time, was from my partner's family, and just steeped into the tradition of where it is. Can we see the countryside of Rome? Is there some pictures for that? I love the countryside of Rome. Everyone else can have, yeah. Nepi, and with this whole area, well, this particular cheese now, we switched where it's made for different reasons, but it's still in the countryside of Rome, about 40 minutes from outside of there. And the Roman countryside is so beautiful. Everybody talks about the Tuscan countryside, so I've got the Roman countryside to myself. But beautiful, lush hills, really cool, the trees. I love the trees. But the sheep there, a lot of them are the Sopranissana, the Sicilian sheep. These sheep have great richness in their milk. There's a lot of variances between the milk quality and different types of sheep. Yeah, this was a very nice looking herd, I have to say. There were lots of these. This day I got to see a baby being born. It was really cool. And then, can we see the next picture? So here's some cheese production. This whole time you haven't seen anything. So these are the vats that heat the milk. And then you add cheese cultures, and then you add rennet, which is this product that's generally in liquid form, although it in the olden days was the lining of the inside of an animal. And that helps spoil the milk and turn it solid. And then once it gets solid, you have this inside which kind of cuts the curd and goes around and around and around and around. And if it's a softer cheese, or you have a larger curd. And if it's a more aged cheese, you have a smaller curd. And then you're going to pour, this is the pouring of the curd into the molds. And then what's really important, and little Miss Muffet, little did you know, is it actually very scientific. She's talking about separating the curds and whey. You need to separate the curds and the whey as fast as you can, or the whey can make your cheese taste bitter. So there's all different techniques that can be used, of like the table leaning down, or having a separate whey for the way that the the manner in which the, sorry, my first language of cheese is actually Italian, so I have some of these gaps in what it is. The molds that they're in, just kind of lifting something up so you can separate the curd physically from the whey of the cheese. With this one, these ridges come from like the straw mat, and the straw mat lifts up the curd from the whey that comes out of it. So there's all other different ways. And so that's the separation of the curds and whey. And then you have the curd in the mold, and then it might be pressed, as I talked about at one time, and then it'll be salted, and then it'll go for aging. All the cheeses, before they get packed and come to anywhere, usually end up having mold on the rind. And then they might go through what I call like the car wash, and you have to brush it off on the end, and then you package it. But again, mold, you get it on your cheese, embrace it, be happy with it. It means it's alive, and that nobody's put like preservatives like natamycin or other things that just make it go away. Your cheese is natural. And I can never, talk more about that. Are there any other cheeses, photos from the Cacio de Roma?
There was a question that I missed when we were at the smoked goat. It was can you eat the rind? And that would be delicious as well. So,
yeah, you can eat the rind. It's your choice. There are more and more, I see people these days in Europe, they're putting inedible rind on the labels. So look at that. But I think it's more because people are just like scared. Nobody wants to have any problems. So they're writing inedible rind. It annoys me, because if there's no preservative on the rind, you can eat it. It just depends whether you will enjoy it or not. And it is the part that people touch. And it's the part that touches the packaging. So you just weigh that and then decide, what you want to do for there. But it's not harmful. It's a natural smoke.
So with this particular cheese being so young, and it does have a distinctive earthiness to it, what would be your suggestion for the pairing?
For what we have, it'll still be better with the fig jam. But I think because it's sheep, you could still, make a case for it with the crabapple mostarda and see what happens. But you'll be safer with the fig jam.
I shut my mic off so I could crunch through this, because they're very loud there. So I tried it with everything, and it is a beautiful cheese, works really well. There's that nice earthiness that I adore. I think it's really a wonderful cheese that way. And having a younger Pecorino Romano style is really cool. So thanks for bringing that one.
Oh my God, thanks. This literally was, if I don't have to limit my cheeses, but I would shred it, I'd shave it. Okay, this was one of the things that I used to do. It was the hardest thing to decide in Rome. Did I want dessert or did I want fried cheese? Because they'd take this, slice it, flour it lightly, and just griddle it until it oozed, a flat griddle. And then you just get this oozy cheese. And it was ridiculous, like really ridiculous. Now, those of you who know me, well, I love my chocolate, but that made me give up chocolate sometimes just to have it like that. But I think what I like about Italy is you can have your cheese as an app, and then you can still have your dessert. Not like France. So there you have to make your choice, or if you have enough room at the end. So yeah, so that's one of the things I love to do.